even begins. Ladies and gentlemen and everybody else in between, LA Reid's trial is starting next week, and I think that this one is going to be one for the books. It already was delayed because his lawyers quit. This man has a lot of money. You would have thought that he would have had an ironclad team. But when you have the likes of John Legend testifying against you, all the PR that's going to bring, if he loses the civil trial, there's going to be a lot more trials coming his way. Hey guys, it's Rob Ali, daily and consistent content. Sometimes, guys, I get straight into the video, but it's good to, say hello. Hopefully everybody is keeping well. Daily and consistent content. But I want to remind you guys of an interview. Thank you to Diddy Docket to resurface it.
This didn't land like a joke. It landed like someone kicked a door open that was supposed to stay locked. When 50 Cent spoke this time, the internet didn't laugh first. It leaned in. Because this wasn't about rap beef, ego, or Instagram comedy. This was about power, timing, and a rumor so radioactive it made celebrity drama look like kiddie pools splashing. The questions spread faster than any denial ever could. Did 50 Cent just expose something that wasn't meant to be public?
Not did.
He joke, not did fans overreact. But did his words reportedly derail a Trump pardon conversation before it could even breathe? The timing alone had people clutching their phones like they'd just witnessed a leak. Nobody was supposed to see. Screenshots started flying. Old interviews resurfaced. Commentators began whispering instead of yelling, and that's when you know something hit different. Because when the internet lowers its voice, it means it thinks it's close to something real. This wasn't just shade. This felt like someone pulling the curtain back a little too far. And whether the report is true, exaggerated, or completely speculative, the damage didn't wait for confirmation. Optics shifted instantly. Silence got louder. And suddenly, everyone was asking the same uncomfortable question. What happens when a known disruptor shines light on something that thrives in the dark? To understand why this moment detonated so fast, you have to understand one uncomfortable reality about 50 Cent. Curtis Jackson doesn't speak randomly. And he doesn't poke blindly. He waits. He studies the temperature. He senses when silence is doing heavy lifting behind the scenes. And then he drops a line that sounds casual enough to dismiss, but sharp enough to cut through the room. That reputation is exactly why the internet didn't laugh first this time. It paused. The history between 50 Cent and Diddy matters here because it taught audiences how to listen. This isn't a sudden rivalry. It's years of side-eyes, sarcasm, and public needling that always seemed playful until it wasn't. Over time, fans learned that when 50 mentions Diddy during sensitive moments, it's rarely accidental. It's usually timed. That context primed the audience to hear intent, not humor. When his words landed, the timing could not have been worse for quiet narratives. Diddy's name was already floating in serious conversations, legal pressure, and industry speculation. The atmosphere wasn't light. It was tense. So when 50's comment entered the chat, it didn't create chaos from nothing. It ignited chaos that was already waiting for a spark. In internet culture, that distinction doesn't matter. Explosion is explosion. The phrase Trump pardon entering the discussion changed the category of the story instantly. Rap beef belongs in one universe. Presidential pardons live in another. Once those worlds touched, people stopped treating the moment like entertainment and started treating it like a leak. Not because anyone confirmed anything, but because the idea itself carries weight. Even the suggestion of political consequence is enough to flip curiosity into alarm. What made the speculation feel believable to so many people is Diddy's profile. He isn't just a celebrity. He's a mogul, a donor, a person long associated with influence beyond music. That kind of reputation invites assumptions about access, whether fair or not. So when whispers about high-level outcomes surfaced, the internet didn't reject them outright. It leaned in. In a culture that already suspects power operates quietly, plausibility doesn't need proof to spread. 0.50 cents persona amplified everything. Fairly or unfairly, he's known for hinting at information without spelling it out. He has built an image of knowing more than he says and enjoying the reaction when others try to fill in the blanks. Fans didn't ask whether he had receipts. They asked why he chose that moment to speak. Motive became the focus, not accuracy. The lack of clarification was gasoline. There was no follow-up explaining tone or intention. There was no y'all. Reaching post to cool things down. 50 let the comments sit. In online drama, letting something sit is an act. It gives speculation time to harden. Every minute without explanation allowed people to project their own theories onto the silence. And projection moves faster than facts. Diddy's silence compounded the effect. No immediate denial, no short statement, no dismissive shrug. Supporters argued that responding would legitimize baseless rumors. Critics argued that clarity would have shut the whole thing down instantly. Both interpretations lived side by side, feeding the narrative rather than resolving it. Silence became a Rorschach test where people saw whatever confirmed their existing beliefs. As the conversation escalated, the reported angle that something had been blocked took on a life of its own. It didn't come from an official source. It came from reaction, amplification, and repetition. That distinction didn't slow the story. It made it more volatile. Unverifiable claims thrive in ambiguity because there's nothing concrete to disprove. They live in the space between possible and denied. And that space is internet gold. Blogs and commentary channels stepped in with careful language, but dramatic framing. Words like reportedly, allegedly, and speculated appeared in the fine print while the headlines screamed urgency. That contrast is how stories travel. Caution whispers. Drama shouts. And once the story crossed into broader commentary, it stopped being a niche rumor and became a full-blown spectacle. What unsettled people most was the idea that visibility alone could matter. Even if nothing was actually changed behind closed doors, the possibility that public attention could complicate private processes felt real enough to cause anxiety. Fans debated whether optics could influence outcomes, whether silence was strategic, and whether someone as loud as 50 Cent could unintentionally force doors to close simply by shining a light. The internet also did what it always does when faced with uncertainty. It started building timelines. Old interviews resurfaced. Past jokes were reframed as foreshadowing. Unrelated moments were stitched together into a narrative that felt cohesive even if it wasn't verified. Logic took a back seat to momentum. Once momentum exists, stopping it requires more energy than starting it. Supporters of 50 framed the moment as necessary disruption. They argued that powerful figures shouldn't be shielded by quiet deals and private conversations. Critics accused him of recklessness, saying joking about something this serious crossed a line regardless of intent. Neutral observers watched the spectacle grow, aware that whether or not anything tangible had changed, perception already had. The most uncomfortable realization was how quickly belief set in. Not belief in a confirmed event, but belief that something could have happened. In the age of social media, possibility is enough to shape opinion. Once people believe something might be true, they behave as if it is, at least emotionally. That emotional shift is impact even without proof. This moment also reframed how people viewed influence. It wasn't about legal authority or official power anymore. It was about narrative gravity. Who can change the temperature of a room with a sentence? Who can make silence feel risky? In that framework, 50 Cent didn't need evidence to exert influence. He needed reach, timing, and an audience primed to connect dots. By the end of the day, the original words were almost irrelevant. What mattered was the chain reaction they triggered. Commentators debated consequence instead of content. Fans argued intent instead of accuracy. And the story refused to settle because it lived in questions rather than answers. Whether anything was actually blocked, delayed, or affected may never be publicly confirmed. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that the conversation itself had power. It shifted optics. It changed how people spoke. It reminded everyone watching that in the modern spotlight, even a comment framed as commentary can land. Like a warning, once the theory escaped the comment sections and hit the wider timeline, the internet didn't just react, it reorganized itself around the story. What began as a question turned into a movement of amateur investigators, meme engineers, and armchair analysts convinced they were watching power dynamics shift in real time. The conversation stopped being about what 50 Cent said and became about what his words allegedly triggered. In viral culture, that pivot is where speculation becomes spectacle. Social platforms lit up with timelines that felt suspiciously polished for something born minutes earlier. Users lined up screenshots, quotes, and dates like they were assembling a case file. Old interviews of Diddy discussing influence and access resurfaced with ominous captions. Clips of 50 talking about knowing how rooms work were replayed like prophetic warnings. Context bent to fit momentum, and momentum didn't. Ask permission. Memes arrived fast and ruthless, because humor is how the internet metabolizes anxiety. Some painted 50 as a chaos agent who strolls into high-stakes rooms and flips the lights on just to see who panics. Others framed Diddy as the silent chess master whose lack of response proved everything and nothing at the same time. The jokes were loud, but the undertone was nervous. When memes feel edgy instead of silly, it's because people think the stakes are real. Reaction channels leaned into the uncertainty with cinematic urgency. Thumbnails screamed, "Blocked?" And "Did this really happen?" While hosts delivered breathless breakdowns that treated ambiguity like evidence. A few tried to slow the pace, reminding viewers that reported doesn't mean confirmed. But restraint doesn't win the algorithm. The louder the framing, the further the story traveled. And the more entrenched positions became then came the vague celebrity posts. Not direct statements, not confirmations, just cryptic captions about timing, loose lips, and knowing when to speak. Nobody named names, but everyone knew the subtext. Those posts didn't clarify anything, yet they made the narrative feel endorsed by proximity. When influential figures hint without specifying, the internet fills the gaps. With certainty. What fueled belief wasn't proof. It was plausibility layered on distrust. Diddy's long-standing image as a mogul accustomed to elite spaces made the idea of behind-the-scenes conversations feel conceivable to a public already skeptical of institutions. Combine that with 50's reputation for strategic trolling and the rumor found fertile ground. It didn't need verification to survive. It needed alignment with existing suspicions. Silence became the loudest participant. 50 Cent didn't clarify, didn't walk anything back, didn't explain tone. Supporters read that as confidence. Critics read it as irresponsibility. Either way, the absence of explanation kept him at the center without adding a single word. Diddy's silence worked the same way, but with higher stakes. Supporters argued that denial would legitimize nonsense. Skeptics argued that denial would end it. Both arguments kept the story alive. As the hours turned into days, the narrative broadened beyond the two men. The discussion shifted toward the mechanics of influence. Could visibility alone complicate sensitive processes? Does attention alter outcomes even if it doesn't change decisions? The story became a referendum on optics in the digital age, where perception can do real damage without touching a single lever of power. Debates grew sharper. Some accused 50 of recklessness, arguing that joking in the vicinity of politics is like juggling knives in a glass house. Others praised him for dragging powerful figures into daylight, insisting that secrecy thrives when nobody asks uncomfortable questions. The split wasn't about facts. It was about values. And value-based arguments are harder to settle than factual disputes. Journalists and legal commentators attempted to ground the conversation, explaining how pardon processes typically operate and why public chatter rarely dictates outcomes. Their explanations were accurate, careful, and largely ignored. Accuracy struggles against intrigue. The internet didn't want a civics lesson. It wanted a thriller. And thrillers don't end with "probably nothing happened." The story kept mutating because mutation is how rumors stay alive. Some claimed the comment froze conversations. Others said it spooked advisors. Still others insisted the entire thing was a distraction that would fade. Each claim contradicted the last, yet all of them circulated together. Consistency wasn't required. Circulation was. What made the firestorm durable was the blend of worlds it touched. Hip-hop drama alone burns fast. Political rumor alone burns differently. Put them together and you get a compound flame that feeds on attention from multiple audiences at once. Fans who don't care about politics leaned in because of celebrity. Viewers who don't care about rap leaned in because of power. The overlap multiplied reach. As narratives hardened, labels stuck. 50 Cent became the disruptor in this chapter, someone whose timing alone could rattle rooms. Diddy became the untouchable in some eyes and the unfairly targeted. In others, those labels didn't need proof to function. Repetition gave them weight. Once weight exists, it influences how every new detail is interpreted. The most telling sign of escalation was how quickly the original wording stopped mattering. People no longer quoted the comment, they summarized it. And summaries are where nuance dies.
He exposed it, replaced, he implied. It was blocked, replaced, it was reportedly affected.
Language sharpened as the story spread. And sharper language makes retreat harder. By the peak of the frenzy, the internet wasn't waiting for confirmation. It was waiting for fallout. A statement, a denial, a counterjab, something to validate the investment. Because once millions of people commit emotional energy to a theory, they expect a return. Silence becomes intolerable not because it proves guilt, but because it denies closure, and that's when the most consequential shift occurred. Even if nothing had changed in any formal sense, the optics had. Conversations were now filtered through suspicion. Every subsequent move by either figure would be interpreted through the lens of this moment. The rumor didn't need to be true to have impact. It needed to be believed by enough people for long enough. In the end, the firestorm wasn't powered by facts or fabrications alone. It was powered by timing, reputation, and a digital ecosystem that rewards escalation over resolution. The story didn't explode because it was confirmed. It exploded because it felt possible to an audience primed to distrust quiet rooms. When the volume finally dipped from deafening to low hum, the consequences didn't evaporate. They settled. This wasn't a rumor that burned hot and vanished. It calcified into a reference point, the kind people keep circling back to when they talk about influence, discretion, and the danger of daylight. Whether anything tangible changed behind closed doors almost became beside the point. The room felt rearranged afterward, and everyone noticed the furniture had moved. For 50 Cent, the aftershock hardened a reputation he's been cultivating for years. He wasn't just the internet's favorite instigator anymore. He was framed as a disruptor whose timing alone could tilt conversations. Supporters praised him for puncturing secrecy, arguing that powerful figures should expect scrutiny the moment their names drift into political airspace. Critics called it reckless, saying there's a difference between roasting a rival and lighting up a sensitive subject that thrives on quiet. Both sides agreed on one thing. When 50 speaks, the temperature changes. That perception matters. In a media ecosystem driven by reach and repetition, perception becomes leverage. Every future comment by 50 will now be scanned for second-order effects, not just punchlines. Intent will be debated before accuracy. Timing will be weighed before tone. The myth of the casual joke has been replaced by the suspicion of the strategic nudge, and once that suspicion exists, it doesn't unlearn itself. Diddy's position grew more complicated, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. Silence, a tried-and-true tactic in celebrity controversies, read differently here. To supporters, it was restraint and refusal to dignify speculation. To skeptics, it was strategy or vulnerability disguised as calm. In an era where denial is cheap and clarity is fast, choosing quiet invited interpretation. And interpretation is a tax no public figure escapes anymore. The broader impact rippled beyond the two names at the center. Industry voices began choosing words more carefully, as if aware that casual commentary could metastasize into political rumor overnight. Commentators who once dismissed online speculation started acknowledging a harsher truth: attention alone can complicate sensitive terrain, even if it doesn't decide outcomes. Optics became the villain and the currency at the same time. What shifted most was how people talked about influence. This wasn't about legal authority or formal power. It was about narrative gravity. Who can make silence feel risky? Who can force a conversation simply by hinting at one? In that framework, proof becomes secondary to plausibility, and plausibility becomes fuel. The internet doesn't require certainty to react. It requires coherence with what it already suspects. As days passed, the episode turned into shorthand. Remember when 50 said that? Became a line dropped into unrelated debates about secrecy and accountability. That's how viral moments age, from event to symbol. Symbols don't need verification to function. They need repetition. And repetition is something the internet does effortlessly. There was a quieter reckoning among fans, too. Many recognized how quickly they accepted a narrative that fit existing distrust of power. That realization didn't erase belief, but it introduced hesitation. And hesitation is rare online. It slows the rush to judgment, even if only by a beat. That beat matters when conversations escalate at the speed of refresh. The legal mechanics never fully caught up to the story, and that was instructive. This wasn't a courtroom drama. It was an optics war. In optics wars, outcomes aren't always measurable, but damage can still occur. Reputations bend. Expectations shift. Future moves are interpreted through a lens that didn't exist before. Even if nothing was blocked, delayed, or altered, the suggestion alone changed how people listened. The episode also exposed a paradox of modern visibility. Transparency is demanded, yet exposure is punished. Silence is criticized, yet speech is weaponized. Public figures navigate a maze where every option carries risk, and timing can transform a comment into a crisis. This story didn't create that paradox. It illuminated it. As the heat cooled, one lesson remained stubbornly clear. In a world where attention is leverage, even speculative narratives can exert pressure. They don't need to be true to matter. They need to be believed long enough to shape behavior. That's a sobering reality for anyone operating near the intersections of celebrity and politics. For the audience, the takeaway wasn't a verdict. It was a warning label. Watch how quickly jokes become signals. Notice how silence becomes evidence. Pay attention to how plausibility outruns proof. The internet doesn't wait for confirmation to move. It moves and dares confirmation to catch up. This story didn't end with a statement or a receipt. It ended with a recalibration. People now listen for implications, not just words. They watch for timing, not just content. And they understand that in the modern spotlight, influence isn't always exercised through decisions. Sometimes it's exercised through attention itself. The room changed. The players adjusted. And the audience learned that when power meets timing, even a rumor can rearrange the conversation. Whether anyone ever confirms what did or didn't happen, the effect is already logged. And that's why this story refuses to feel finished. Now, before you scroll away and act like this was just another internet rumor, let's be real. You stayed because this story wasn't normal celebrity drama. It was uncomfortable. It blurred the line between jokes and consequences, between hip-hop beef and real-world power. Whether you believe 50 Cent exposed something real or simply cracked the door open at the wrong time. One thing is undeniable. The conversation changed the moment he spoke. So I want to hear from you. Drop your take in the comments and don't play it safe. Did 50 Cent know exactly what he was doing? Or did the internet turn a hint into a full-blown political thriller? Did silence protect Diddy or did it make everything look worse?
And do.
You believe attention alone can actually derail things powerful people want handled quietly? Say it with your chest, because the comment section is where the real trial happens. Now smash that like button like it owes you money and try to dodge the payment. That one click tells the algorithm you want more deep dives, more uncomfortable questions, and more breakdowns that make regular celebrity gossip look childish. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now. Because stories like this don't come with official press releases, and this channel stays ready when the internet starts whispering too loud to ignore. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next move, the next quote, or the next moment when one sentence flips the entire narrative upside down. Around here, we don't wait for confirmation to start asking the hard questions. We track timing, power, and intent while everyone else is still arguing about headlines. Because in today's world, influence doesn't always show up in documents or decisions. Sometimes it shows up in a sentence that lands at the wrong moment. This is where power gets examined, narratives get